Well, welcome to True Voices, where we invite different members of our society to listen to their stories. And today we'll have Jennifer and Jina with us here in the studios. Now, statistics show that there was a 25% increase in the numbers of type 2 diabetic people here in the country compared to 5 years ago. That's type 2 we're talking about. But today, we are going to talk about type 1 diabetes because there was an absolute tragedy that unfolded in Taean, South Chungcheong province. A 9-year-old girl grappling with type 1 diabetes fell victim to a horrifying act as her parents took her life before ending their own. So today we aim to delve into the reasons behind this heartbreaking incident and explore potential measures to prevent such occurrences in the future. Joining us in the studio are Jennifer and Jina. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So are you all sick too?
No, we're not.
I think the thing is the sudden cold actually hit a lot of people that much. But anyway, Jennifer, this is not your first time here in Diverse Voices. When was the last time you were here?
I was here about 2 years ago when I was first diagnosed and just talked about my journey a little bit.
There you go. So how about you, Gina? Can you give us a little bit of a background about you?
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Jina Park, a mother of two, and my 8-year-old son Jun was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes back in March 2022 in Japan.
In Japan?
Yeah, I'd like to share some experiences and insights from our journeys ever since today.
Yeah. Wow. Now, type 1 diabetes here in Korea is called 소아용 당뇨, right? It's
juvenile.
It's juvenile diabetes. Now, I have said that earlier during my opening how a lot of people are actually trying to change that name to actually make sure that people acknowledges the severity of the said disease. So for those of our listeners who are not familiar with type 1 diabetes, what actually is type 1 diabetes? What are the symptoms, the causes, or the typical age? Because they said it's a soayong or it's a juvenile diabetes.
So the name is actually a bit misleading because people can be diagnosed at any age. Like I was over 30 when I was diagnosed as well.
Oh, wow.
And type 1 diabetes is basically a disease where the body is no longer able to produce insulin. But we need insulin to process the food that we eat, like the carbohydrates. So the cells in our body that produce the insulin were killed off by the immune system. And therefore, the only way for us to get insulin is by injecting it.
So this is quite, as you have said, misleading. It's not a juvenile diabetes because it can happen at any particular moment. Because a lot of people were talking earlier about, if the adults are getting it, most of the time it's type 2 diabetes that they're talking about. But you can actually get it even after, you are all grown up. Yeah. So this is really misleading. Now, the tragic deaths that I have talked about, the Taean, what happened in Taean, they have brought renewed attention, especially to the economic challenges and financial burden for patients and their families in Korea, right? Do you think that, there is really a big burden to families who are taking care of, family members who have type 1 diabetes?
Yes, of course, we do realize that. But we have support from the Korean National Health Insurance System for CGM, continuous glucose monitors. They pay 70% of the sensors and transmitters. And for all other consumables, such as needles or test strips, lancets, etc., they support 90%. But however, the procedure is quite complicated. Even for me, it took hours to apply for it. So I think it should be way more simplified than now, so anybody can apply for it and take the benefits. And I would say from 300,000 won up to 1 million won per month, depending on the situations and families. And if one of the parents quit their job for childcare, it really burdens on the family economy, which is my case. And also, as far as I know, the family from Taean, they had had the burden of transportation expenses and accommodation costs while traveling to Seoul because they don't have any hospitals.
In Taean?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is, it's happening right now. A lot of regions, they don't have anywhere to go. So they have to find a hospital by themselves from far away.
Yeah.
A lot of doctors actually refuse dealing with people with type 1 diabetes as well. So in our foreigner community, we have heard that a few times as well, that some doctors literally just say, we don't want to deal with the prescription and insurance hassle that comes with it. And they had to go and try and find a different hospitals. And in places like Ulsan or Jeju,
Is that
it's
even
not easy.
legal?
Yeah, but
Is it legal to actually turn down a patient? Wow, this is something that we should actually really talk about. Now, as you have said, Gina, earlier, and your son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when you were living in Japan.
Yes.
So how do other countries support, countries' support system and infrastructure for patients compared to those that you actually experienced here in Korea?
Yeah, from the moment Jun was diagnosed at the hospital in Japan, every step had been systemically carried out. We were at the hospital for 2 full weeks. And we were quite busy learning and practicing all the process. And Jun and I could receive training on insulin injections, blood glucose monitoring, and lifestyle adjustment. So they even managed a meeting with the school involving his homeroom teacher and principal and school nurse.
This is in Japan, right?
Yes, yes. And overall, it was a combination of medical care and thorough education and support. Of course, when we left the hospital, I almost felt like coming home with a newborn. I was overwhelmed and the world was on my shoulder. That's how I felt. But still, I wasn't too frustrated because I knew there was, as a doctor, I could reach out anytime by email or phone call. And also, we had never felt like alone or on our own.
Yeah, I mean,
you
you are so... you are so secured with the fact that you have a doctor to call to, whereas here in Korea, you get turned...
I literally,
yeah.
when I got diagnosed, I was told I had type 1 diabetes, got a prescription for insulin, and was sent on my way.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know how to inject. I didn't know
happen.
how much I should use. In fact, the amount they gave me for my first injection was way too much. So 3 days later, I had a hypoglycemic incident.
Oh, wow.
And so, no education on continuous glucose monitors, no education on insulin pumps or anything. That all came from our community that I found later by myself. And
Wow. Now, this is something that, I know that you actually have had a bad experience during your first, when you were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes here in Korea. How do you compare that to different countries?
Well, now as the international coordinator for our team, I get to talk with a lot of teams all over the world. And even just today, actually, we heard that in the UK, they just confirmed that loop systems will be supported, where you have an insulin pump and a glucose monitors connected together, and that will be supported for everybody now in the UK.
Wow, that is something. I mean, I know just having one sick child at home is difficult enough, but thinking about all of the things that you have to go through and not being thoroughly educated about what happens and what you should do to actually help your child is something that can be so frustrating. And I know there are, like discrimination related to this disease in Korea. Is there anything like that? Like, how do people think of type 1 diabetes, except for the fact that they don't actually want to heal it? They don't want you in the hospitals for it. Besides that, is there anything?
Yeah, there are many misunderstandings and prejudices in Korea. I think it's all from a lack of awareness, and people are not just very familiar with the disease. And there are cases where kindergartens, daycares, and schools deny admission just because they think it's an extra work for them.
Yeah.
And also at elementary schools, school nurses are not allowed to give injections because of it's against Korean medical law. And then, so many parents, they have to go to school to give injections. This is happening right now.
Why can't they just, train all of this school nurses to actually inject insulin? This is something that I don't understand.
Really help.
Is there a pending proposal to revise, the support system for type 1 or type 2 for diabetes in general in the National Assembly right now?
Yes, they are. They have made comments that they're discussing it, but nothing has come of it so far. I also know that there will be a meeting with the Ministry of Education, but again, we're still waiting for the outcome. It is a bit strange that parents are allowed to inject their children even though we have no training.
And school nurses are not.
Exactly.
Oh,
So
wow.
parents are pretty much forced to stop their work in order to go there. So.
Oh, wow. So, yes, that's what I was mentioning earlier, because I was looking at all of the news clips, and they were saying it's not just the Ministry of Welfare, of Health and Welfare, but it's also connected to the Ministry of Education.
Yeah.
So, in a way, it's actually, we are trying to look for changes that we can actually push through for all of this. I mean, it's really so heartbreaking that we actually have to experience something like the Tean tragedy to actually try to, make something or talk about this, or actually make sure that this is something that goes out in the open. Now, what's the biggest change that we actually need in support of, those patients with type 1 diabetes?
I guess they are trying to expand the support for under 19 years old, but it was originally scheduled for March this year. But in light of Taean incident, it has been moved up to February. But then this is only for those under 19 years old, which is just 7% of
it doesn't include you.
That's right.
No.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And also, they really need to give all patients education at the beginning. That's crucial. Yeah.
Patients, teachers, school nurses, and all of that. This is very crucial because it's a life and death situation. I can understand that, and it's something that we actually have to work with. Hopefully, I could actually, I don't know how I could help you guys about it, but hopefully, there's something that we could do in regards to that. Because not a lot of people, there weren't a lot of diabetes patients way back. I think that we have more diabetic patients here in the modern era than what we had way back. Now, we know that a lot of people, especially, there are people who are actually, affected by the type 1 diabetes, just like you, Jennifer, and who have kids or family members who are suffering from type 1 diabetes. Can you send out any messages of support to those with type 1 diabetes? Any advice that you would want to give to them as a parent first? Gina, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, we want you to know that you're not alone. We're in this together. I think sometimes even I forget other people are living like this life because we don't get to see them. But there's community out there. Please come and join. And there's still, even whether or not there's a cure in the future, but there's still hope. There's always hope. And we get to choose life every day. See it as an opportunity to choose life. So let's choose life together.
Yeah, named juvenile diabetes is not only for juveniles. This is something that all of you has to learn, and Jennifer went through it. So for those actually not juvenile, adults even who are suffering from type 1 diabetes, is there anything that you would want to say to them, Jennifer?
Yeah, I think it's the same. Like, don't give up. Like, life is still amazing when you learn to manage everything. And to be honest, I've met some of the most amazing people just by being in this community. And some of my closest friends now are other people with type 1 diabetes. Having talked about it as well, I am super lucky that my instructors, my Taekwondo instructors, really understand what's happening. I've had people noticing that I was low before I noticed I was low. So people are helping me. People are very welcoming. And I think once you kind of accept yourself and you accept that this is something you deal with and you reach out to people, you get a whole new lease on life in a way.
And just in case, what community are we actually trying to reach out?
Like, we have the Korean Society of Type 1 Diabetes.
Okay.
We have a message board on Naver, but even if you're maybe your Korean is maybe not that great. We have a small foreigner community on Facebook as well. And pretty much every platform has some form of community as well. So just, you're not alone if you reach out. There are type 1 diabetics all over the world.
I think that's the biggest biggest thing that you should remember. You are not alone and life is still beautiful. March Gunderson said, 일본의 교육 관리 모델은 부럽네요. So yeah, Gina was talking about how they were educated well in when they were in Japan, something that we are missing here in South Korea. Hopefully, we get to learn that particular process as well here in Korea. Thank you very much for being with us, you both.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Yes. And that's all that we have for you here on Diverse Voices. It's so sad to actually, have a tragedy. Just, we have to go through a tragedy to be able to talk about a very important thing here in the country, especially when it comes to health. So hopefully you also give much of your time, effort, and interest to learning what type 1 diabetes is and what are the families and the people who are suffering it are going through. Well, this has been Jasmine with our producer Kyungmin Lee, our sound engineer Paul Matthews, and our guests Gina and Jennifer here in the live studio. I'll see you next Wednesday, and we'll leave you with a song. This is Train with Drops of Jupiter. Love you all.